Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Fayfire. And today we are here to discuss House of the Dragon, and we are going to be discussing one of the most important castles that will be appearing in season 2, Harrenhal. And Harrenhal is not brand new to we Thrones fans. It was featured obviously in the books heavily, but also in the Game of Thrones series. Arya spent some time there with Gendry, with Tywin Lannister, and with Jack and Hagar. So there are a lot of things to discuss about Harrenhal. It is the largest and most haunted castle in Westeros. Maybe not the most haunted, but it's definitely the largest castle in Westeros. So we're going to talk about all the fun details of this place and what we can expect in season 2 of House of the Dragon. And what characters to expect and that kind of thing. We got some shots in the trailer of Harrenhal. Seemingly it appears like it took place there, such as this photo of Daemon looking extra creepy and dark and rainy and scary, and that's exactly what I want to see from Harrenhal. So before we get started, let's say hello to the chat. We've got a few people here, and I'm so glad to see you all. Mrs. Duncan the Tall, still alive, my darling. Wild Marjoram, and we have a new friend here, Mateo. I don't know if I've seen you before in the chat, Mateo, but if you've been here, hello, and if not, hello. And to everyone else. So drop your hellos in the chat. Good morning or afternoon. I'm far west, so everything is much earlier for me here. Yes, indeed, Mrs. Duncan the Tall, extra hot Daemon. I mean, let's be real. You and I are friends behind the scene, and we talked about we were a little hesitant on Matt Smith's casting, but he has really proven he's proved us wrong. Like, he is killing it as Daemon, and I swear every episode that goes by, he is a little extra hot. Alys Rivers had to conjure some rain for him because he's just too hot. So, well, anyways, good morning, everyone. We'll be going through a few photos and just kind of the history of Harrenhal in general. It's got a lot of history that basically kicks off right around the time of Aegon's conquest. So it's sort of in current history. And it's interesting because, we don't really calculate the time before Aegon's conquest, or the very recent time before Aegon's conquest. So I guess Black Harren, who was the king of the rivers and the isles. So basically he's ironborn. I apologize. My neighbor just let their dog out and he barks like crazy. So if you can hear that, I'm sorry. And also let me know how my audio is, if it sounds bad or anything like that. I think my son was messing around. He's like the bane of my existence. He's always messing around with my electronics. So if it sounds funny, just let me know, or if I'm too loud or echoey or anything, just please let me know. So Black Harren, his name is Harren of House Hoare. Okay, Hoare, Hoare. And he is the king of the rivers and isles. And so this kingship was prior to, let's just say, the Ironborn. Okay, so I mean, that are strictly Ironborn. We had, we know the Greyjoys are like the kings of the Ironborn. Well, prior to that, the Riverlands and the Iron Islands were all sort of one kingdom. And Harren the Black was the king of that land. And he decided that he wanted to build a castle that matched him in his, grandiosity, right? They say the castle was built out of hubris of his own greatness. And so it took 40 years to build Harrenhal. And he decided to do this in the Riverlands, just north of the God's Eye, so basically right on the shore of the God's Eye, which holds the Isle of Faces, which is a sacred island to the First Men and the Children of the Forest. And this is where the Sacred Order of Green Men live, is on the Isle of Faces. And so basically Harren was like, I'm going to build this massive castle right in eye shot of the sacred island, and I don't care, what the Children of the Forest think. That's their problem if they don't like it. And this is going to be, I mean, they can't miss it. It's got 5 massive towers, and it's said that it looks like the rooms at Harrenhal are large enough to fit like a giant rather than just normal men. They're more fit for a giant than normal men. So there's a lot of interesting things that went into the building of Harrenhal. Hello, House Lorebridge, Miss Casey. It's so nice to see you. It's been so long. I love you. So my girls are here. So Black Harren, he beggared the Riverlands, and he took slaves. He enslaved people from the Riverlands to build this castle, and countless slaves died building this castle. So he's taking all of his resources. They were cutting down 3,000-year-old weirwood trees, so massive trees, cutting them down to roof his castle. So, I mean, the whole thing is just an abomination, in my opinion. Like, if I were the Children of the Forest or the Green Men on the Isle of Faces, I would be looking at what he's doing, right in our eye shot, as an abomination. It's like you're cutting down our sacred trees, because that's the whole thing about the Isle of Faces. This is where the pact was created. So the pact between the First Men and the Children of the Forest. So basically, after the First Men migrated to Westeros and were integrating themselves, and they were cutting down the trees because they were like, these trees are super creepy. They have faces carved into them and they cry blood. Like, what is this? So they were cutting down the trees themselves. And then the Children of the Forest went to war with the First Men because they were like, yo, these are super sacred to us. Like, what are you doing? What? Like, they believe that the weirwood trees are their old gods. Okay. So basically, the First Men cutting them down, or Black Harren cutting down the weirwood trees, is a big sacrilege to these indigenous people. That's how we can look at this. So, let's see. Sorry. Yes, exactly. Going to irritate the tree gods. Exactly. And they are important. These are the indigenous people of Westeros. So, so Black Harren, he's desecrating the land and these sacred religious, I wouldn't even call them items or relics. I mean, they're growing like actual living trees. And so that's a little bit different. So anyhow, the final brick was laid in building Harrenhal on the day that Aegon began his conquest. So Aegon set out to conquer the 7 kingdoms, and when he got to Harrenhal, Harren was like, no, like, who cares? I live in the biggest, most grand castle in the 7 kingdoms. You're not going to dominate me. You're not going to be, you're not going to reign over me. And he and Aegon went back and forth a couple times. And then Aegon basically showed up and he said, look, if you aren't willing to open the gates and bend the knee to me, then at sunset, your line ends. And Harren lived at Harrenhal. He had all his sons there. And again, there's 5 massive towers. And so he was like, well, try and burn me out. Good luck. And yes, stone does not burn, but it melts. Again, going back to the weirwood trees that are used to build the roofs. So there's wood integrated into this building. There's also like ropes. There's, all kinds of things that burn, like straw, hay, all kinds of things that burn within the castle walls that are not stone. So Aegon took Balerion up as high as high into the sky, and then he just descended down upon Harrenhal and burned the whole thing. And Balerion, again, Balerion came from Valyria. He was the last dragon to come from old Valyria. And so he's massive, he's ancient, and his fires burn black hot. And so he burned the castle down, and he ended Harren and his line. And the castle still remains, but it's melted and it's twisted and it's super creepy. And then we have to consider there's rumors that again, going back to like the slaves who died while building the castle, it's also said that there are spells, and there is even the blood of those slaves or sacrifices imbued into the stone, into the mortar. So this whole thing is very creepy. There's been a lot of death, and then there's a curse that kind of comes along with it. So basically, after Harren is killed, they say the castle is haunted and that it is cursed, and those souls remain there, and whoever inherits the castle tends to die or have extremely bad luck. And so this place seems to be extremely haunted. And we have to also think, they're with the way that the children of the forest view the weirwood trees as their gods. There's almost like there could even be a haunting from the weirwood that was used in building Harrenhal, So there's just layers and layers of like sort of death and souls and ghosts and all of this sort of interwoven into the stone. And as the story progresses, it just gets increasingly more creepy. In House of the Dragon, there is a character named Alys Rivers, who is the witch queen of Harrenhal, and it is said that she's woken the power in the stones. So, and her whole deal, she's the witch queen, so her whole deal is being very creepy, and I can't wait to see her. That's Alys Rivers is going to be played by Gail Rankin in season 2, and we haven't seen any shots, any photos. She was not featured in the trailer, so they're really keeping her under wraps, and I'm so excited. I'm beyond excited to see her as a character, but we're going to get more and more into all of that. If you guys have any questions in the chat, I'm going to get caught up with you guys over here. And if you have any questions or anything like that, drop them in the chat. We're just kind of getting started. I want to go through the history of the castle and sort of what's going to be happening in season 2, and then sort of what we'll kind of get into spoiler territory for the future of the story, because that's where things get really interesting, in my opinion. So I'll let you guys know before we get into spoiler territory. But all right, let's get caught up with the chat. Let's see. We've got Mink here. Hello. And Carl Karsnark. Hello. Thank you for being here. And of course, Miss Casey and Cece and Wild Marjoram. Okay, let's see. So, okay. Oh, happy birthday. All right. Harren deep dish pizza. Yes, indeed. And we will talk about Harwin. He's an important piece of this puzzle. Yes, and Rhaena Targaryen did have Harrenhal for a while. She basically retired there. So, all right, let me just check my photos here. You know what? I'm really bad about doing photos and talking, so I'm probably just not going to do too many photos through here, but I want to pull up a few, and we are going to look at the ones from the kind of shots that we had from the trailer. So let me just switch this. Sorry. Normally I have Mandy here to fill in the silence while I switch photos around. We have a system. Come on. Okay. Well, my computer doesn't want to work right now. We'll just give it a minute. Okay. Anyways, we'll proceed. Okay. Kirsty Angel, hello. Thank you for being here. All right. Oh my God, I'm so unorganized right this moment. I'm so sorry, you guys. Okay, I thought I had it organized and now I'm more unorganized. Okay. So, all right. So let's talk about basically the layout, the towers, just the size of Harrenhal in general, just so we can have an idea of this in our minds, because this is the largest castle in the Seven Kingdoms, which is something to, pretty massive to imagine. The Red Keep is huge in and of itself. Winterfell is huge in and of itself. It even has like the crypts beneath it, and we don't know exactly how deep those go. But Harrenhal itself is just sprawling, massive. It's like 3 times the size of Winterfell, is what Arya says. And there are 5 massive towers. And the names of those towers were actually lost to time with Harren. So the original names of the towers, we don't even know, but how they're referred to as of now, there is the Tower of Dread, which is near the Middle Bailey and the Mews. I don't know what Mews are, if anyone wants to tell me. I'm sure, Carl, I bet you know that. It just seems like random information you would know. The Widow's Tower connects Kingspire Tower via a stone bridge. Underneath, there is a great cell used to keep prisoners. So that one's like a pretty busy tower. And I think it has like deep levels also, which I think might be where Alys is, like in House of the Dragon, after they set the fire to Larys sends those broken men, they set the fire, and then they go and they hide away into the lower levels, and that's Alys's future army of broken men. FYI, Larys is sending those guys to her. If you haven't watched my Alys Rivers video, I highly recommend it. I believe it's linked in the description here. But we're over analyzing all this kind of stuff in there. Okay, so there is the Wailing Tower, which is the 3rd tower of the 5. It contains the storerooms on the ground floor and cavernous vaults beneath. Oh, okay, actually, so maybe that's where those guys are hiding. Just kidding. Then we have the Tower of Ghosts near the Postern Gate and the Ruined Sept. And then we have Kingspire Tower, and that's like your main place. And that contains the Castellan's Chamber. It connects to the Widow's Tower via the stone bridge. And I believe Kingspire Tower is like where the Great Hall is. The Hall of Hearths, I believe is what it's called. It has like 35 hearths in it. Or Arya only counts 33, I believe, but it's just massive. Think about the scale of that. That's just, and it's, I think they said that the Great Hall is like large enough to, no, that can't be right. Never mind. Forget what I said. Okay. Anyways, so we have several gates. I believe there are 3 gates. The main gate has walls so thick that no less than a dozen murder holes are passed before one reaches the yard on the other side. It said that these walls are like massively thick, and they're made of black stone, not oily black stone, but black stone. And then the east gate is smaller than the main gate and is located near the Tower of Ghosts. There's also a massive Godswood. Their kitchens are large enough to fit the Winterfell stables, I believe is what Arya said. The stables at Harrenhal themselves are large enough to fit 1,000 horses. So, this place is just massive. And this is where they had, the tourney at Harrenhal. That is where Rhaegar and Lyanna met each other. They also had the Great Council of 101, which is where old King Jaehaerys decided to name Viserys as his heir rather than Rhaenys. So a lot has happened in this place. Okay, and their Godswood covers 20 acres. And this is an interesting thing. Their Godswood it has its ancient weirwood tree in it. So when Black Harren was building the castle, he at least was mindful of that and kept the weirwood tree there. He didn't cut that one down. So is that him? Because that seems like that's part of the pact, because all the castles in the realm sort of have a godswood that's protected, or well, it's protected, but it's also has like a weirwood tree, like an honorary weirwood tree in it. And so it's interesting that like he recognized that when building this castle, he didn't cut that weirwood tree down. And that tree is said to have a very angry face on it. We don't know whose face that sort of represents. Is it Harren, or is it someone else? I think we're all on the same page that the weirwood face that's in it might evolve or might change depending on like who made a sacrifice there, or something like that. I don't know. You guys tell me your thoughts in the chat. I'm going to try and change this photo again. I don't know why it wasn't working. Share this one instead. Haha. Okay. So this was from the trailer, and this is a shot. So we have, I don't know if you guys can see that. Okay. We have the Isle of Faces over here. People are saying this is Cyrax. I can't argue. It kind of looks like Cyrax. I don't know why Cyrax would be at Harrenhal. That's not part of the book, but we'll get into that, I suppose, when it happens. And then Harrenhal's over here. I have to move my little guy. Stop it. Okay. Anyways, tra-la-la. So this is an awesome shot. We can see there's like the weirwood trees, the red leaves on the Isle of Faces, and it's just you can see the castle right there. So imagine being, the green men and seeing, these ancient weirwoods being cut down, or the children of the forest who might live there. And it's just very interesting that they're so close together. I have, so in my Alys Rivers video, I talk a lot about the parallels between the Isle of Faces and the Isle of Avalon in Arthurian legend. And they're very similar. They're both sacred islands, and they're both like, Arthur is, after his final battle and he's mortally wounded, his body is taken to the Isle of Avalon for healing and safekeeping by his sister, Morgane Le Fay, who is Morgan of the Fairies, or she's a healer. So she has a lot of parallels with Alys Rivers. And so there's a lot going on here because there are so many Arthurian parallels throughout House of the Dragon. They're really using it to structure the story in many ways, or sort of like a framing of it in many ways, in whether it's Rhaenyra and her sort of sovereignty queen, being recognized by the White Hart, or killing the boar out in the woods, those are parts of Celtic mythology that indicate a sovereignty queen, or a queen of the land, okay, that the land recognizes, and sort of mythological, okay, versus like the relationship with Alicent and Kristen Cole, which is sort of like Guinevere and Lancelot. There's sort of the courtly love thing going on. So again, going back to the Isle of Faces and Harrenhal and the Isle of Avalon, King Arthur is said to remain on Avalon until the time of Britain's greatest need. Okay. And then he'll come back as like the once and future king, right? So the Isle of Faces is kind of a similar idea, because this is a place of reincarnation, or sort of life, death, rebirth cycle. Like the green men, they're green men. Green represents reincarnation, life, rebirth. It also represents death. It's like that reincarnation cycle is represented within the color green. And so, exactly, Kirsty. So, Harrenhal is all stone walls and weirwood beams, basically a massive massive spirits of children of the forest graveyard / castle, and it's cursed. Exactly. And it's like an abomination as contrasted by the Isle of Faces, which is sort of like a reincarnation place, a place of rebirth. So it's kind of an interesting parallel there. And I also kind of was thinking about it some more this morning with them, because if you guys are familiar, sorry, we're going to get into a little bit of Arthurian lore here. The Tor at Glastonbury, which is basically said to be where Avalon was. And then basically the Christians came and they built this tower, which is called the Tor, and it's a Christian religious site, right? And so, and this is all kind of interwoven into Arthurian legend, because there's this transition from the old gods to the Christianity and the new gods, and Arthur's sort of presenting that to the Britons as like, the future. Anyways, so, but Morgan Le Fay, being a priestess of Avalon, when they built the Tor there, it was almost like that's an abomination. It's like they could see it, and Avalon is said to be sort of this mysterious island. It's shrouded behind mists, obviously mists of Avalon, and so it's shrouded, it's hidden from the eyes of men. It's said where the Fae live, the fairy folk, hidden in that mist, right? So it's sort of shrouded. And so when she sees the Tor built similarly to Harrenhal, it's an abomination in her opinion. She's like, this is sacrilege to my religious beliefs. I keep the old gods and the old ways, and this is like the ways of our land. And you're building an abomination to try and, sort of bring on a new way. And so there's a lot of parallels here between these two places. And then when we start to get into the similarities between Alys Rivers and Morgan Le Fay, there's a lot of parallels there. And so all of this stuff is all within that Arthurian framework that's working within House of the Dragon, but also just unique and creepy in its own way also, because, in my opinion, the Isle of Faces is a place of reincarnation, a place of life, death, and rebirth. And that, whether or not you agree with that, I think that Daemon Targaryen fits into that. So anyhow, okay, let me get caught up on the chat here. Okay. So yes, and Carl, I wanted to pull this one up. So Avalon is the Lake of Apples. So it's the Isle of Apples, the Isle of Glass, the Blessed Isle, and the apples also have like the this is where it gets interesting. So there are 5 seeds within an apple, and so it's sort of within this Celtic numerology, you might say. Now, granted, they're really dedicated to the triad, so to the 3, the cycle of 3s, but the apple is a sacred symbol, and with the 5 seeds that it has is parallel to the oh crap, I don't have it on this one, but anyways, the 5 points of the star, which are presented on the shields of Arthur's knights, particularly Gawain. And I think you guys may have been here before when I've nerded out about Gawain's shield. But anyways, I have a lot of like passionate feelings about Gawain's shield. Anyways, but what's interesting about that 5-pointed star that is on the Knights of the Round Table is a parallel to the Sacred Order of Green Men. Okay, because their symbol is the green hand, 5 fingers. Sorry, I'm on the wrong side. 5 fingers. So so it's the exact same sort of symbology as what appears in, with the Knights of the Round Table, and their 5 points represent, it's like, hold on, I'm going to pull it up so I don't butcher this, because to me it's like everything. Okay, so 5, wait, star on Arthur, wait, Gawain. I don't know. Okay, all right. So I'm going to find this. Hold on. And I'm sorry, you guys, but it's just important to me. Fulfills my soul a little bit. Okay. Religiously, the Pentacle's 5 points have been known to represent the 5 wounds of Christ, symbolize the Star of Bethlehem, the 5 virtues of knighthood, and in my opinion, the 5 the 5 wounds of Christ, but also the apple of Avalon. Okay, that's where it intertwines here, and maybe you only recognize that if you're like a witchy lady, but okay. So generosity, courtesy, chastity, chivalry, and piety. And this is from line 663 of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. So, tra-la-la. That's my opinion. I think there's, definitely a similar thing going on with the Sacred Order of Green Men. Generosity, courtesy, chastity, chivalry, and piety. And maybe there's a variation on what their 5, duties or, priorities might be, but that's kind of in line with that. And I think that's where the inspiration for the Sacred Order of Green Men comes from. The Knights of the Round Table. Maybe I'm just off on a tangent, guys, but I don't think so. So you tell me what you guys think. Okay, let me get caught up here. Yeah, the Grecian apples were a little bit different, like the Greek mythology of apples, and they're sort of like, I don't know. I mean, like with the Trojan, with Eris, and the golden apple and that kind of thing. Maybe it's like the coloring. I don't know. Okay, let me see here. Oh, okay. Yeah. The pointed star is Venus. I think Venus has 4 points. But I could be wrong there. Yes, there's a star when you cut the apple open. Thank you guys. Sorry, I'm just getting caught up here. All right. Okay, let me get caught back up here. So if I missed anything good, I apologize. Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of that going on in House of the Dragon as well. With the gold and with I notice it a lot with like the jewelry that Rhaenyra wears. The Rhaenyra and Alicent, their jewelry are sort of like, there's this symbolism, if you guys pay attention, where like in their younger years, Rhaenyra is sort of in the sun, and then like she has full like sun jewelry, but then as the series progresses, it halves. So she's wearing like a half, and hers is like lower, whereas Alicent's is like a rising sun. It's very interesting. There's a lot of really cool details like that. Anyways, that's tra-la-la. Okay. Okay. All right. So let me check my notes and see where we're at here. Sorry, we're doing a bit of chaos streaming. I'm a little bit unorganized. Let's read these. We'll get into who has held the castle of Harrenhal, but I just love this. I have 2 quotes from Peter Baelish here that I wanted to share with you guys, because as we know, Peter Baelish becomes the Lord of Harrenhal in, A Song of Ice and Fire. So, but prior to that, he says, Lothston, Strong's, Haraway. Wait, did he say that twice? Or did I? No, he had to have said Lothston, Strong's, Haraway's, Strong's. I don't know. Harrenhal has withered, every hand to touch it. That was much better before I realized it said Strong's twice. That has to be a typo. Anyways. And then he also says, and what a castle it is. Cavernous halls and ruined towers, ghosts and drafts, ruinous to heat, impossible to garrison. And there's that small matter of a curse. So, and those are both from A Feast for Crows. So let's go through who has held the castle of Harrenhal. So after Aegon's conquest, he granted Harrenhal to his master of arms, which was Coharis, I think Quentin Coharis. And then he died. So then the castle was given to, I'm so sorry, I don't know, I'm really great at taking notes. Walton Towers. Was he or was he the one that died? Anyways, the Towers lived there. They were like a bastard family. And then Rhaena Targaryen showed up and she wanted to live there. There was one Towers left. Lord Towers was left, and he was sick and he was old and he was dying. And so basically after the death of Arya Targaryen, Rhaena she was done. She's been through enough. And we're not going to get into Rhaena today, but she's been through it. So she just said, I quit the whole game, and she moved to Harrenhal and lived out her days with the Towers fella. And after he died, because he was a pretty old man, then she just lived there, and she was like the lady of Harrenhal and queen of Harrenhal. And so after she died, the castle was given to Lord Bywin Strong, which was the brother of Lucamore Strong, who he's pretty infamous. I think we're all familiar with Lucamore Strong. Lucamore the Lusty, he was in the Kingsguard. But his brother, Bywin Strong, was given the castle, and that is the beginning of the Strongs holding it. And that was in 73 AC. And the Strongs held the castle until 131 AC, which is when Sir Simon Strong... Well, we lost... Basically, we lost Lionel and Harwin. They were the lords of the castle in 120 AC. Then Sir Simon Strong, which I presume is Lionel's brother, he was lord of the castle until 130, 129 or 130-ish, until Aemond showed up. And then after that, Alys Rivers becomes the Witch Queen of Harrenhal. And she basically she's okay. This is where it gets interesting, people. All right. This is what I really like. Alys Rivers becomes Witch Queen of Harrenhal in title in 133 AC after the Dance of the Dragons. However, Simon had died in like 130, and then Larys dies in 131. So then there's kind of this 2-year period of Alys just being super creepy, and nobody's gone to Harrenhal. They're still kind of trying to recover things, and they send someone and things don't go so well. And so then they have the winter fever, which is basically a pandemic, comes along. And so that kind of interrupts their plans. Now, before we get into all of that, the next person to hold the castle is House Lothston, Lord Lucas Lothston. My lisp hates that name. But he does not get the castle until 151 AC. So that's 20 years after Larys's death, which means Alys is either at the castle for that 20 years or no one is. At the end of Fire and Blood, we're basically left on a cliffhanger when it comes to Alys Rivers, because she says that she's had Aemond's child. She has his son, and she also has a dragon behind the castle walls. And so that's kind of where it ends with her, because the winter fever comes along and nobody's like taken it. So she either holds the castle for 20 whole years, or something happens, she gets killed or whatever ends up, or what have you, and then nobody lives at the castle for 20 years. Regardless, there's a 20-year period where Alys Rivers potentially is the Witch Queen of Harrenhal this entire time. Pretty interesting, if you ask me. But that's a cliffhanger we're left on. And then after the Lothstons have the castle, House Went inherits it. And in the Lothston family is Danielle Lothston, who is said to also be a witch and to practice black magic and blood magic and, shapeshift into a bat and bathe in the blood of virgins and this kind of stuff. So it's kind of interesting that back to back we have two sort of witch queen type figures. Interesting. So let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments here. Let me get, yes, Alys Rivers Party Castle. I am there. Okay. Yes, golden delicious apples are great with cheese. That's like my favorite snack. Okay, oranges and apples getting messed up due to word etymology. Good point. Simon is Lionel's uncle. Oh, interesting. Well, okay, all right. Yeah, and he's going to be played by, who's the name of the actor? Hold on, I have it here. Where are my notes? Simon Russell Beale. And I actually have a photo. So let's take a look at the photos really quick. I saw this on Twitter and So some people are saying that this is Daemon at Harrenhal, and in the background you can kind of see a few people. Let me see if I can zoom it. It's probably not going to look very clean, but you can see a few people are back there, and people are saying that this is Simon. Hold on. That this one is Simon. So yeah. It should be interesting. So Harrenhal is going to have a lot going on this season. Let me pull this up. So basically, let's kind of go through, and we're gonna probably get into a little bit of spoiler territory here. But let's go through kind of what the events at Harrenhal in the Dance of the Dragons are. Okay, because we have the Strongs. They have been lords of the castle, and they kind of kick everything off here. Let me pull up my boys. And I do want to point something out here while we're on the subject. Now, you guys might be familiar with like the black bat of Harrenhal, right? As sort of their sigil. But that sigil didn't actually the black bat of Harrenhal didn't actually come about until House Lothston. I cannot say that. I'm so sorry. It's so hard on my list. Okay, so House Lothston, they had the black bat of Harrenhal. And it is said that there are bats that haunt the castle in the upper levels of the towers, because as time progresses, there's not a lot of people living there, and so they're only using like the lower levels of the castles, and then they're kind of shutting down towers entirely that they're just not using unless there's some sort of special event. Like when Arya is at Harrenhal, she's having to go and like clean old like filth and old rooms and stuff to make room for Tywin's men, and for Vargo Hoat comes through. And so she has to kind of make space for their men, and she has to like go and clean these really old rooms, and they're full of dust and they're full of bats and just creepy stuff. The old stairwells that take her like days and days to clean. And so there's a lot of little details like that, because that's basically what she does most of the time while she's at Harrenhal, is like a lot of cleaning and running messages and that kind of thing. Anyways, so the black bat at Harrenhal doesn't come around as a sigil until House Lothston, and then I think also the Wents use the bats in their sigil as well. But prior to that, the Strongs, that's not their sigil. They didn't have the black bat of Harrenhal. And what's really interesting is their sigil was modified for House of the Dragon. So it was like 3 rivers, red, green, and blue rivers that were running. But in House of the Dragon, they got a really interesting new sigil. And It's kind of hidden. You can see it a little bit here on Lionel, but let me pull it up to what it actually looks like because I think it is so important to everything that they're up to. So this isn't my best version of it, but we still have the three rivers. We have blue, red, green rivers running, but they lead down to a hand. And on the hand on their in the photos, you can kind of see it with Harwin and with Lionel, but here I'll pull up Harwin so we can really see it, and plus he's fine. So it's a green hand on a white field. So, and what's the sigil or the symbol of the Order of Green Men is a green hand on a white field. So this really leads me to believe that how strong actually are the green men. They come from the Sacred Order of Green Men. And it fits into sort of their personalities, like spreading seed and and then like the life, death, rebirth cycle. Like Harwin spreads his seed, he creates new life, and he dies. And you know, I've been watching a lot of Yellow Jackets in the last year, so I'm like really in tune with like the reincarnation cycles. But I definitely see it like within how strong and with the sigil modification, because it wasn't how their sigil was previously described. It was just the rivers, but the fact that it leads to that green hand, and then they are the lords of Harrenhal, which is right there at the Isle of Faces. It seems very like indicative of something more going on. And the fact that they like modified it in general for the series obviously is trying to tell us something deeper than we previously knew. So let me get to the chat here. Mink asks, what are your thoughts on Larys being a skin changer? And I do think that. I also think Alys Rivers is, and that's kind of hinted at. Obviously, she's called the Witch Queen of Harrenhal, but there are some specific moments that lead me to believe that she is a skin changer and that she skin changes the ravens, similarly to what Bran did in Game of Thrones, or just like the green seer skill in general, because like that's really like strongly implied with the ravens in Game of Thrones. So and even when in the books, when Bran is learning to kind of control his skin changing abilities, Blood Raven in the cave is like teaching him to skin change into ravens, and he senses there's like a shadow on the soul where there previously was, you know, a skin changer had used this particular raven or what have you. That was its animal. So there's a lot, you know, there's a lot that's in Game of Thrones, like with the Starks and their dire wolves, or with like Jon when he goes north of the wall with the wildlings, and like Varamir Sixskins, or Arel and his eagle. But anyways, so Alys Rivers, at one point, to be specific, I'll name one specific moment when after Daemon, so Daemon is the first person to take Harrenhal, and he stays there. He's waiting to see if Aemond shows up and that kind of thing. And then eventually he leaves. But when he leaves, and he takes the castle peacefully. He doesn't have to use Caraxes. He doesn't have to kill anyone. He takes the castle peacefully. Even Sir Simon like opens the gates to him, and they get along just fine. It's no issue. So when Daemon leaves, again, peacefully on good terms, at the moment that he and Caraxes fly away from the castle, a murder of crows or a murder of ravens, they leave, and they fly to the Isle of Faces. So in my opinion, that is Alys shape-shifting into the ravens and going to the Isle of Faces with whatever sort of information or whatever plan. And I do think that actually, you guys, an unpopular opinion, maybe spoilers, most of us are aware of the impending romance between Alys Rivers and Aemond. However, I think there's something bigger going on between Alys and Daemon versus, whatever little love affair. I think that's like totally according to plan. Like there's a plan going on between Alys and between Daemon. They're the ones holding the cards. Aemond is a plaything. Kristen is a plaything. Alys is going to get them chasing their tails, all spun up, all stupid, getting into fights with each other, and send them off to their own impending dooms. So that's my opinion. Mark my words right now. It's not about Alys and Aemond's romance. He's a means to an end for her. And she's got bigger plans. Remember, she's the witch queen of Harrenhal. So it's not red queen, or not red queen, not black queen and green queen. It's not Alicent and Rhaenyra only. There's also the witch queen. So, and she's called that for a reason, and she outlives everyone else. So there's something to Alys Rivers and what she's up to. All right. So go off, Alys. Damn right. She's gonna. Okay. No, because I do think that, think about it. She's in this really sacred location. Whatever she's up to, she's not in King's Landing. She's not doing that. But going back to, sorry, if I don't know if I answered this. So going back to Larys and, is he a skin changer? Yeah, I do think he is. And what's he up to? I think he and Alys have some sort of green seer communication thing that is going on between them. And I didn't bite at first when it came to like the whole Larys skin changer theory, because I was like, do we really need that? Or is it too much of a parallel to Bran because they both, have physical limitations and that kind of thing. Like I just was kind of like, I don't know if I'm feeling that. But then kind of the more and more we think about it, especially considering Larys is the one who sent those broken men from the black cells to go and burn down Harrenhal, to kill his own father and brother, and then keep those men there as his own sort of guys, like his own broken men, his own army of broken men that they're building up, whether it's for him or whether it's for Alys. And maybe, Larys's ultimate plan is to try and get back to Harrenhal and then they could rule together. But he has to do, he's sort of put in place. And it goes back to like that green men reincarnation. Their lives may just be as like a leaf falls from a tree. If they're tethered to the werewoods in some way, in some capacity, their body or their spirits or something like that is tethered to the werewoods on the Isle of Faces, then it might not be as detrimental to them to put themselves in a position of life and death versus like, if that, like, it's just kind of, maybe that's part of their religion, All right, let me drink some water. They're good swimmers too, unlike what Yellow Jackets is trying to make people believe. Am I missing what that's in reference to? Oh, rats. Yes, rats swimming, indeed. Okay. All right. Thank you guys for being here. Just getting caught up here. Let my voice rest for a second. Oh, Kim. If we don't see a clubfoot, I'll never believe it's real. Yeah, show us your foot. Show me yours, I'll show you mine. Allison should have said that. Okay. All right. So let me get back to my notes and maybe we'll change a photo here. Oh, we were going to go through, okay, the history. Okay. So we might get into a bit of spoilers here. We are going to get into spoilers. These are book spoilers from Fire and Blood. So if you're not ready for it, well, get ready. Don't leave. Let me pull up a different photo here. I only organized like half of my photos, so it's just kind of, anyways. I'm only halfway organized. All right. Here's some Harrenhal for us. All right. So we're going to go through kind of the main bullet point events that happen at Harrenhal throughout the Dance of the Dragons. So, as we said before, Lionel and Harwin, they died in the fire in 120 AC. And the dance, like the actual dance, like Viserys doesn't actually die until 129. So there's 9 whole years there. Simon Strong is ruling. Alys is a wet nurse and a healer at Harrenhal. And Larys is serving as Master of Whispers. And that's the remaining Strongs. Okay. So early in the Dance of the Dragons in 129, Sir Simon Strong surrenders the castle to Prince Daemon during his assault on Harrenhal. Daemon used it as a base for the Blacks to launch attacks in the nearby area. And so Daemon, we saw in episode 10 he was like, we have to take Harrenhal. That's like centrally like important to our cause because they already don't have King's Landing and they obviously don't have the Westerlands, which are going to be under control by the Hightowers and the Lannisters. So it's critical for them to gain control over those coastal lands, the Vale, the North, and, potentially Dorne, but they're not in the fold actually. So not Dorne. Okay. And there is kind of that discussion from Alicent to like a 2-state solution with, the Greens taking one section and then Rhaenyra taking the North and sort of the islands. Interesting timing. Okay. So Prince Aemond, so after Daemon's been there for a little while, he ends up leaving. He and Rhaenyra have a sort of dragon bond mind meld situation where when Rhaenyra decides to take King's Landing, because basically Daemon's sitting there at Harrenhal and he's just waiting. He's trying to lure Aemond and lure Criston Cole towards him, because if they can get Vhagar out of the city, out of King's Landing, then Rhaenyra can take it. Because Vhagar's not going to come back and torch the whole city if the rest of the Greens are still inside the castle. But they can't take on Vhagar alone. It's just not a good idea. So anyways, so finally, Aemond and Sir Criston Cole lead an army of Greens to retake the Great Castle. But once they arrive there, they find that Daemon is already gone. And so Daemon and Rhaenyra double back. They go take King's Landing and take the Red Keep. So when Aemond and Criston Cole arrive to Harrenhal, they find it abandoned by the Blacks. And Aemond is furious. And he kills Sir Simon and everyone within the castle walls with strong blood. Save for one, and that's Alys Rivers. So they hang around there for a while at Harrenhal, thinking that maybe Daemon will return. And this is when Alys starts to mess with them. So Criston and Aemond are at Harrenhal, and she's sort of messing with their minds and getting them twisted up. And, she's having this affair with Aemond, but then suddenly it's said in the books that Criston is sort of getting, he's becoming attracted to her, or, and it's causing contention between the two of them. And those two have so long and so frequently been, these brothers in arms and honorable men, and they don't partake in the things that Aegon does and all of this. They're honorable men, and all women should be seen in the light of the mother. And Alys plays the two of them like a fiddle. And so they get to fighting with each other. Criston decides, I'm taking my men and we're leaving, and they go to fight in the battle by the lakeshore, and I don't think things go so well for Kristen, or at least for his army right then. But anyhow, so they leave. Aemond decides to leave Harrenhal as well. He takes Vhagar and ravages the Riverlands, including burning all wooden structures. Well, this is afterwards. So he goes, he destroys a bunch of castles all over the Riverlands, all in general proximity to Harrenhal, which is really interesting. So, there's a reason for this. So, while he's gone, Lady Sabbatha Frey comes to Harrenhal, and she tries to take the castle. She finds Alys Rivers there. Alys is standing at the pool in the Godswood, and she says that she is pregnant with Aemond's child. She says, well, she doesn't specifically say it's Aemond. She says, I have the dragon's bastard in me. I feel his fires licking at my womb. She doesn't specifically say it's Aemond, so keep that in mind. The dragon's bastard. Okay. Later, I think she implies that it's Aemond, or I don't know. I'm going to have to double check the language. But anyhow, again, I think there's motives for that. So, all right. So when Aemond returns, he decides he's going to come back, and he torches Harrenhal. And this is very similar. I wanted to just point out there's two instances here. Number one, Aemond comes and he kills everyone within the castle walls with strong blood. Number two, he goes and he comes back and he torches Harrenhal all over again. These two actions are very paralleled to somebody that Daemon Targaryen is quite often accused of being, which is Maegor the Cruel. So everyone says Daemon is Maegor the Cruel come again. But these sort of, in my opinion, the two most detrimental actions of Maegor, or, well, I mean, I could be wrong. He did a few things, but I am pro Maegor over here. So you know what? Take what I say with that grain of salt. But, but those two actions, Maegor goes to Harrenhal after he, is told by Tiana of the Tower that his wife, Alys Harroway, who came from Lord Harroway's town, which is right next to Harrenhal, had cheated on him in order to become pregnant, and which isn't even true, because she gives birth to like a stillborn dragon baby, that the Targaryens often have, or like these stillborn babies. So I don't believe that she cheated on him at all. But regardless, he was so infuriated that he went and he killed everyone in Harrenhal and Lord Harroway's town that had Harroway blood, and he also burned Harrenhal, just like Aegon did. So just saying, there's something to that. Aemond, in my opinion, Aemond is the one who is more like Maegor versus Daemon, who is said to be Maegor the Cruel come again. Disagree. Hard disagree. They both have parallels. I made a video about this too, if you guys want to check it out. All right. So Sabbatha Frey, she's forced to hide in a privy while Aemond is torching the castle. That's the only way she escaped. And while Aemond is there, he takes Alys Rivers with him, and they leave Harrenhal on Vhagar, on Dragonback. So, and then after that, they go, and Aemond continues torching the Riverlands, supposedly for, clearing out the Rhaenyra supporters in those lands. But also, again, he's clearing the lands around Harrenhal, all the castles, all the holdings, all of the other lords, and all of that. He is torching their lands and leaving Harrenhal intact. And then Alys becomes the Witch Queen of Harrenhal. So it's kind of, did she coerce him, or not coerce, but maybe like convince him? Did she kind of manipulate the situation, use her witchy abilities and say, let's get all of these lords, these, these people of power around me in this general vicinity, and let's just torch all of their holdings. So then I'm the main power in the area at Harrenhal. So, okay. So later, Daemon and Aemond fought in the battle above the God's Eye. And, Daemon he goes to Harrenhal. He waits there for 14 days. He's cutting a slash in the heart tree. He cut 13 slashes in the heart tree while he waited. So a slash every night that still bleed fresh every spring. And on the 14th day, Aemond and Alys arrive on Vhagar, and that evening, the two men fight in the battle above the God's Eye. And this is another parallel to Maegor and his nephew, who also fought in the battle above the God's Eye. And Maegor defeated his nephew, who, would have... But he was the heir to he was his father's heir, so he was technically meant to be king as his eldest child. But Maegor said, the man who has the Iron Throne should go to the man who has the strength to hold it, or something like that. So so the two meet at sunset above the God's Eye. They fight on Dragonback. Aemond on Vhagar, Daemon on Caraxes. Sorry. Who? What? Okay. And they were both killed. Okay. So they fight, the dragons fight. Daemon leaps. So Aemond is wearing his chains. He's, in his saddle on Vhagar, and he's chained in, and he's, set to go. Whereas Daemon, and we've seen this, Daemon is very comfortable on Dragonback. He's done crazy, acrobatics. He and Laena used to go, and they were doing all those tricks riding together. And that's something else to point out. Laena, her dragon was Vhagar. And this is what I have always said. Vhagar remembers dad, okay? Laena was Vhagar was Laena's, okay? So that's mom's dog, right? Vhagar is mom's dog. But Vhagar's not going to forget dad, they had commands, they had a whole routine worked out while they were in Pentos. They are very familiar with each other, and I believe that Daemon knows much more about Vhagar than Aemond does. And we've seen that Aemond doesn't have full control over Vhagar. I mean, nobody really has full control over a dragon, but Aemond doesn't. Aemond's all about show. He's like, I've got the biggest dragon. I'm riding the biggest dragon. He's not controlling the biggest dragon. And so when the situation comes down to it, like with Luke and with Arax, Vhagar is not listening to Aemond. And so when it comes down to it, if Daemon knows commands or ways to control Vhagar that Aemond does not, then he's going to use that to his advantage. But what he does is he leaps from Caraxes onto Vhagar, which, we've seen the two of them flying and dancing together. Vhagar is massive compared to anyone, but particularly Caraxes is not a huge dragon, and he's kind of spindly. He's the wiener dog, and so he leaps onto Vhagar, and he takes Dark Sister, the Valyrian seal sword, and he drives it hilt deep into Aemond's sapphire eye. And that's how he wins. And the dragons and the men, they come tumbling down and they crash into the lake, and Vhagar's black blood was boiling in the water. And later, Aemond's body is found years later, but Daemon's body is never found. And I think that's really interesting and very significant. Caraxes was able to climb to the shore and died on the shores of the God's Eye right outside of Harrenhal. And so I kind of have this vision in my mind where his blood sort of fed the weirwood tree in my opinion, the weirwood at Harrenhal. I mean, it's a dragon. It's probably massive with a lot of blood coming out. So wouldn't that be interesting? But with daemon never being found, yeah, that's interesting. What's up with that? Do you guys think that there's something more to it? Yes, Lady Stone. I love this. Calling him Noodles. Yes. So in my opinion, if you guys want to know my opinion, again, going back to the Arthurian like overtones, I definitely think that daemon has a lot of that once and future king symbolism connected to him. And he's also, the one person in the world who he probably has more dragon wisdom and knowledge and ancient knowledge than anyone else on earth, in my opinion. Like he and Lena, when they were married, they lived in Pentos, they visited the free cities, and it's even rumored that they went to the ruins of old Valyria on their dragons. And daemon spent all that time. We saw in episode 3 or 4 where he's like episode 6 actually, where he's reading all the books and he's just soaking in as much knowledge. And this is in Essos, in the free cities. So these are going to be texts and information and things that they're not going to have in Westeros. You're not going to find all of that. And this is like closer to the actual source, the Valyrian free cities. They probably do have, knowledge on some of this ancient, dragon lore, wisdom, magic, their blood connections, all of that. Than they're ever going to have in Westeros, where dragons were not native to and sort of despised anyways. Like the maesters are really trying to like suppress any of that information, or the marriages that could strengthen that. The maesters are really trying to prevent any of that happening. And so daemon, being that one person who has that knowledge, is like so important. And considering that we know that the weirwoods and like with Bran Stark, like the knowledge that these people have once they're sort of connected to the weirwood information superhighway is they can share information and wisdom through the ages. And so it seems to me like daemon would be like a really good inclusion into that, that collective knowledge, right? He has knowledge that no one else alive has. And it might even be like foreign knowledge to Westeros anyways, or like the weirwood net in Westeros anyways, because they didn't have dragons. So having this one person and, the prophecy of the Song of Ice and Fire, they need him. They need his knowledge. And I always go back to thinking about Daenerys. If Daenerys, for what we know, if Daenerys could talk to like one person, one of her ancestors, would daemon not be like, I mean, other than like maybe Aegon the Conqueror, like wouldn't daemon be like the best resource you could think of, in my opinion? Just saying. Tell me in the chat, do you guys agree? Do you see where I'm going? And I know a lot of people don't like to think about that idea that daemon made it to the Isle of Faces and now he's sort of preserved in the weirwood net. But all signs point to that being the case, and it's like a source of preserving his knowledge versus like, maybe it'll be like Arthur, he'll come back in the time of Britain's greatest need. So maybe daemon will come back in the time of Westeros's greatest need. But I think it's more of like accessing that knowledge, because we already have this prophecy of like a once and future king or queen, or the prince that was promised, or princess that was promised, and that's Daenerys. She fulfills that role. So anyways, am I off on a tangent, guys? But I'm for that. Okay, I'm team like, yeah, daemon got reincarnated on the Isle of Faces and preserved his ancient dragon wisdom knowledge. Period. Okay. All right. So, let's see. Yes, Augustus visited Alexander the Great. Are we talking about? Yeah, I love that. I love people who think they're the reincarnated Alexander the Great. Is like, it's like one of my favorite things. Okay. Miss Cece, Alejandra, Magno. Oh, interesting. Okay, Lady Stoneheart. Miss Kim says Demon is cold hands. That's interesting. I don't hate it. I haven't thought about it a lot. I personally, I like Benjen being cold hands, even though George has said no, that's not the thing. But I think I made a video about this also. I think it could actually fix the end of Game of Thrones. If they were going to do the snow show, I think they should have had Benjen come back and continue him being cold hands, and it would. Anyways, watch the video. It was a good theory, all right, in my opinion. Okay. Daemon also climbed to the shore, but he got his head blown off by Alys. So, point. All right. So let me go on here. I know snow show is shelved. I know. And that makes sense, but it would have been fun. I am a Jon Snow, like, die hard. Like, I love Jon Snow. Okay. I love him more than Daenerys, don't throw things at me. Jon and Arya are always like my favorite characters in A Song of Ice and Fire. So, I just have always like really liked their story. I love Daenerys, of course, but it was so funny. Like David Lightbringer posted that iceberg of Daenerys the other day, and I was just thinking, I was like, he loves Daenerys so much, and I love Jon so much. We are so like the opposite of each other, like in that way. It's like A Song of Ice and Fire of A Song of Ice and Fire creators. I don't know. Anyways. Oh, yes, exactly. I am a northerner, so I am partial to the north, to be perfectly. I did live in Arizona for 5 years, but I really hated it there. I was like Daenerys in Marine. I was like, I gotta go. So, all right. All right, you guys. Thank you guys for being here and watching and hanging out. So let me see. Let me check my notes, see where we want to get to next. Oh, we didn't even finish all this. I just got off on a tangent. Okay. Okay. So, tra-la-la. Okay, so Craxes, Daemon, Aemond, Vhagar, battle above the God's Eye. And we should point out that this is a parallel. We kind of briefly spoke on this, but the battle beneath the God's Eye was fought in 43 AC, which was between Maegor and his nephew, Prince Aegon. And it's interesting, the names of the two. Now, the battle between Maegor and Aegon was a little further south. So I believe that's why they call it the battle beneath the God's Eye. It was further south on the lake, versus this one being right there at the shores of Harrenhal. Now, the battle above the God's Eye was fought on the 22nd day of the 5th moon of 130 AC, which I like to pretend in my mind is like a solstice. Like, it's very close to, actually, it's 1 month off from the what am I saying? Summer, not equinox, but solstice. Summer solstice is on June 22nd, typically. So, and granted, the months and things are different in this, universe, but I like to think that there's something there. Like there was some sort of equinox or some sort of solstice kind of situation happening on that day. Maybe just for my own like fun. Okay. So after this, Larys Strong, obviously still Lord of Harrenhal, but he was executed during the Hour of the Wolf in 131 AC, and that ended House Strong. And his death is really interesting because he asked to have his club foot cut off after he's killed. He said, "Cut this thing off. I don't want to carry it into the afterlife with me." Interesting. The afterlife. Larys is a religious man. Okay. Now, Alys Rivers, the so-called witch queen, who ruled Harrenhal during the regency of Aegon III following the Dance of the Dragons. So she claimed to Sir Regis Groves and Sir Daemon Derry that she was the widow of Prince Aemond Targaryen and that their young son was trueborn and the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. Regis did not survive the encounter, and Daemon fled back to Derry. An ill-fated messenger sent to Derry claimed that he had seen a dragon inside of Harrenhal. This is like super creepy story, because Alys, proves that she can either do magic over long distances, perhaps she was poisoning these guys, or somewhere in between, but she is killing guys over long distances at this point. So that's pretty interesting. So the regents in King's Landing planned to gather a large army to recover Harrenhal, but their plans were interrupted by the winter fever of 133 AC. And King Aegon III gave the ruined castle to Sir Lucas Lothston in 151 AC. So if you guys haven't been watching the whole time, Alys Rivers potentially has that castle from 131 AC to 151 AC. So a 20-year period that she is ruling over Harrenhal, or, until we find out more details. But I think that is just so interesting that 20 whole years go by and she's either that formidable or like they just don't care. But I don't see that they don't care because they've already, tried to send people there. They've lost men. And, if we know anything about men, they don't like to lose to women. Sorry, I love you, men. But they, especially in war, right? So sending a bunch of men tuck tail and running is not a good look for the crown. And you would think that they would be more motivated to try and retrieve what's theirs, by that in and of itself. So not hating on men. I love men. But just saying, like, that's like a good motivation, to, like, if she's like, this is my castle, screw you guys, get out of here, I'm gonna like kill your guy, anyways, whatever. But what's interesting is, so when Sir Regis Groves comes to try and retake the castle, he comes with 100 seasoned knights from Derry. Like, he basically gathers some men. He goes to Castle Derry after he leaves with his orders, and he gathers 100 knights. They go, and Alys basically, here, let me pull up a photo because I actually have this one. Hold on. Okay, here she is. This is the closest to official Alys Rivers fan, art that we have, but okay. I have so many photos open right now. My computer is like, what are you doing? So this is Alys when Sir Regis shows up, and sorry, I'm just closing some of these. Okay. She's standing here. This is supposedly Aemond's son. And she says that they were wed to one another, which, is a good question. Like, are we looking at a Rhaegar Lyanna kind of situation? Is this like a sacred marriage to the land situation? What is this marriage that she claims? Is this a traditional Valyrian ceremony? Because, going back to Maegor and Alys Harroway, the wife that was from, the Harrenhal region, they had a sacred Valyrian marriage performed by Visenya. This is just coming to my mind right now. But so there's something there. Like, what was this marriage? And I have a lot of thoughts. Okay, so we're gonna now. I don't know if you guys have watched my Alys reverse video, but there's a lot of it. It's basically a lot of what we're talking about right now. But my final conclusion is that Alys is essentially a green priestess. She's a high priestess of the Isle of Faces. She performs rituals or magic that is related to, whatever they're practicing on the Isle of Faces. And so when we look at figures like Morgan Le Fay and like her position in Arthurian legend, Morgan and Arthur actually have a child together. Even though they're half siblings, Morgan is a priestess of Avalon. Okay. So she has a sacred position. She's the Lady of the Lake in title. Okay. The Lady of the Lake is a goddess figure who resides in the lake. She's a sovereignty goddess. She has the sword Excalibur that she loans to Arthur. But the Lady of the Lake in title is the High Priestess of Avalon. Okay. And Morgan and Arthur, because Arthur is chosen as the Stag King. He's the king of the land. He's chosen by the sovereignty queen, and he proves himself to be, the king of the land, right? This is going back to like kind of old Celtic ways, like they're kings and queens, where the queen, the sovereignty queen is the land, and the king is the protector of the land. Okay, so the woman represents the land, the man is a protector of the land. Typically, the man only serves for as long as he can while he has the physical strength to do so. The queen is typically more long, like she has more longevity, right? But even in A Song of Ice and Fire, this idea is toyed with in Essos, because I think it's in Pentos or Volantis. No, I think Volantis is like a democracy. I think it's in Pentos, where they'll, like, if the crops are failing or if if things are going awry in the land, then they will literally sacrifice the king and replace him. And that's not like, this is very like Celtic in practice, right? So, especially going to like their mythology, right? So anyways, so is Alys, like, if she's a green priestess and she married Aemond and the child is a product of that sacred marriage, which is very much like Mordred in Arthurian legend, yeah, I mean, is that the kind of marriage we're looking at? Are we looking at a Valyrian marriage? Are we looking at a traditional, like, I mean, Aemond is a pretty traditional kind of guy. And I don't think he necessarily has all the knowledge to do like a Valyrian marriage ritual like Daemon and Rhaenyra did. But I don't know if, like, you Targaryens and your customs are queer or whatever that Alicent says. So I don't know if Aemond has that level of knowledge for like that sort of ritual. I don't think he does. I don't think he does. So I'm guessing either this is like a green marriage to the land, or it's a traditional marriage of the set. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I don't think they would have a traditional like Faith of the Seven marriage. So anyways, interesting. Something crazy is going to happen. I swear to God, please bring this to the screen. I swear, Ryan Condal, I am here for it. Get as weird as you want. Okay. It's kind of a lot of like concept, like it's deep. Like there's a lot of deep history and kind of concepts in that idea of a marriage, and then as well as like the sovereignty queen and the chosen king kind of thing. Anyways, there's a lot to it. I talk about it a lot in a lot of my videos, but it's kind of hard to like to specify. Anyways, okay. Yes. Mord or mort equals death in Latin. Even there's probably the most famous Arthurian novel is called Le Morte d'Arthur, The Death of Arthur. And it's tells his whole life. And basically it's just the leading up to his death, because his death is very impactful and important. And, he's said to be the once and future king. It is the myth of Arthur is that he will return in the time of Britain's greatest need. To this day, that is, if you're a myth head, like that's what you believe. That's like sort of the crux of Arthur's whole story. So yeah. And Germ is deep, and he loves Arthurian legend, and there's so much of it to his stories. And there's so much there, like I talked about on my last stream, and in David's stream I was on a couple weeks ago, the Egyptian mythology that's also within this story is really crazy, and I love that so much. But there's just this an aria, an amalgamation of these different mythologies interwoven into the story, and then they're using it to sort of create some framework. There's pieces of it, there's threads of it in the story, but the show is doing such an amazing job of creating this. Like, I am so I love Fire and Blood. I do love it. I love all the stories in there, but I love the way that Ryan Condal is orchestrating all of this. It's so beautiful. The mythology, I speak his language. I'm feeling what you're putting down. Okay. All right. So yes, exactly. That's right. You know what? And isn't that fitting? I was thinking about that this morning. I was like, we're going to do it's the day after Easter, but we're going to be talking about, the reincarnation cycle that happens on the Isle of Faces. So I thought it was fitting. Christ is king. Piss off the Daily Wire. Okay. All right. So yeah, Ryan is a huge fan, and it helps. It definitely helps. Okay. All right. So, and while we're on the subject, Ryan actually did an interview with Entertainment Weekly, and he was talking about Harrenhal. So I'll just read to you guys what he had to say. Harrenhal definitely is its own character in the show, Condal says. It has its own character in the original books. In the original series, when Arya was playing cupbearer for Tywin, was playing cupbearer for Tywin there. Other than the Red Keep, it's probably the most talked about, storied castle in Westeros, and we really wanted to pay service to it. The location plays a strategic role in the story of the Dance of the Dragons, as written in Martin's Fire and Blood, and it's where we'll meet various other characters like Alys Rivers, played by Gail Rankin, and Sir Simon Strong, played by Simon Russell Beale. Whether, and this is another quote, whether it's real or rumored, it does have this supernatural aura around it that puts people off, Condal notes. We were excited to play that out as storytellers. And it's also said in the same article that the scene in the trailer where Daemon says, "My terms are very simple, renounce the false king and bend the knee to the queen or your house burns." And it's said that that was at Harrenhal when he says that. So pretty excited for that. So scenes from both trailers show a rain-drenched night scene in which Daemon arrives on the back of Caraxes. We do have, so I want to look at a few more photos really quick, and we'll start to wrap this up. And if you guys have any questions, drop them in the chat. But I think we're there. We're familiar. Let me close some of these out really quick because I just have like 100 pictures open right now. My computer's getting slow. Okay. Whoops. Sorry, I'm slow. Okay. Let's pull this up. Okay. So let's go through the shots that we have from the trailer that take place at Harrenhal. And then I'll come back and I will get to the questions in the chat. Okay, so we have this shot of Daemon. It's creepy. It's night. He's climbing through. The rain is coming down. He's wearing his black Targaryen armor. He's got his sword out because honestly, it's super creepy out. It looks awesome. His armor is epic. I love it so much. Then there's this next shot where there's like the lightning kind of flashes. He's going up a stairwell. The rain is just pouring down. It's the black stone all around him. It's nighttime. I mean, you can imagine like this place has to be so creepy. Black stone in sort of the Riverlands is sort of like this creepy kind of wet, muddy location. It's dark, how are you supposed to see if you're in black stone at night? There's no torches lit. It's pouring down rain. I mean, it just looks awesome. And then here's Caraxes, which they said in the article that this is, from the scene at Harrenhal. And we can see, I mean, dragons don't really like that wet, cold weather. And he doesn't seem very happy right here. Little noodle boy. This one I thought was really cool. Now, this is just like a passing scene. We can see there's a soldier walking, but you can see right here that there's Caraxes. And this definitely looks like Harrenhal. Again, the black stone and the stormy sky. So I just really like that. And then we talked about this photo earlier where it looks like it's Daemon going in. This might be Sir Simon back here, perhaps some other people. Maybe Alys is in there, but we really can't see. I'm very sad I didn't see Alys. Now, this one I want to talk about a little bit. So this is Aemond, and it's not certain that this is at Harrenhal, but a lot of people are speculating it is because in the painting, that the mural he's standing in front of, it looks to be Harrenhal. It's like a flaming castle. So yeah, so let's see if we can zoom into this a little bit. You can kind of see, yeah, there's like some fire going on. And it's a massive castle. It's got like these curtain walls, so it very well could be. It's not the Red Keep. I would assume that would be painted red, right? So, should be really interesting to see. Maybe this is right after Aemond arrives. I believe when Aemond arrives that I think he comes alone, like before Kristen gets there. So he and Vhagar show up. I could be wrong on that, but I think he shows up first on his own, and then like Kristen shows up shortly after with all his men. So, all right. I think that's about it for the photos through the trailer. Let me make sure there aren't any really good ones. Oh, I grabbed a couple of these just because, and why not? We can share these. These are by Ertak Altanaz, and he is just an incredible artist. He's done a lot of like official artwork for Thrones. And so I brought two of his photos. This is the Battle Above the God's Eye. Let me see if I can do this because it deserves to be seen on its own. So there's Caraxes and Vhagar, and in the battle it said like Caraxes bites Vhagar around the neck, and I think that Vhagar like rips off one of Caraxes' wings, and it's just chaos. It's just absolute chaos. So I just love Ertak's work. He just does incredible work. And then he also had, this is from The Pact on the Isle of Faces. And I thought this was a great piece of work because we can see the massive weirwood trees, the first men. They're sort of tree towns that the children of the forest live in because they're just climbing around in these massive trees. They're just little folk. So yeah, I just love these two pieces. I just thought that I'd pull them up for you guys. Okay. I think this is the right one. Okay. So yeah, that's about it for, oh, and then one last one that we have to look at, of course, because this was incredible. This isn't by Urtak, but this was from the new calendar, the 2024 like official Thrones calendar. And this is Rhaegar and Lyanna. I'm sure you guys have seen this at this point. But it's Rhaegar and Lyanna on the Isle of Faces. And what's really interesting that you see in here is that it's green. It's like not red. It's not the red leaves. And there are the blue roses down here. Lyanna loves blue roses. So anyways, I just thought I'd include that in the stream because it's just a lovely piece and something to learn. So, all right, let me get caught up here in the chat and get caught up on your guys' questions. Okay. So, is Harrenhal evil or is it built on an evil location? That's a good question. I am inclined to say I don't think it's necessarily evil or on an evil location. I think it's on a charged location. I think that it's a very magical location. Probably that entire region is very magical because of the Isle of Faces and because of the children of the forest living there. And clearly the Isle of Faces has like, the most intact weirwood grove, I guess we might say, north or south of the wall, right? Because weirwoods are doing pretty well north of the wall. But so I'm going to say that the location is very charged. I think it's very, it could be used. It's there for the taking. So if the right person is there and knows what they're doing, then it's a very powerful location. But otherwise, I think it is just a castle, and probably the curses and all of that come along with it are more man-made, I guess you might say, just like Peter Baelish said. It's ruinous to heat. It's too costly to upkeep. I mean, it's too big. It's just too big. And what is exactly Harren's hubris? It's like, what's the point of having a castle that big if you cannot maintain it at in a reasonable way, if you're not beggaring yourself just to upkeep the place? And I think it's really interesting also that Peter, he never like lives there. He's like, okay, I'm the lord of the castle, but he's like, I'm not trying to be there. He's like, you guys can use it for whatever you want. The army's passing through, use the bear pit, do whatever you want. Just don't bring me into it. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily evil, but I think that it's a charged location. And I think that if the right people are there, then now could that magic be more powerful than a person? Perhaps, because we look at someone like Mad Donnell Lotston, who, she inherits the castle later, and she is said to bathe in the blood of virgins and that she's sacrificing people. And, she's, we do get a brief glimpse of Donnell. She brings an army to White Walls. Cece's going to kill me right now because I don't know this story very well. It's the third story in the Duncan Egg book, the White Wall story. I've only barely read it, so we'll just say that. I just wasn't that interested in that one. So anyways, but she ends up bringing an army to the tourney at White Walls, right? And she is wearing black armor. And that's all I know. But she's said to like be a mad woman. And what I was thinking when I was kind of reading about her is it reminded me a lot of Daenerys, actually, because the whole thing with Danielle, and this might be the case that maybe she wasn't an evil woman. And this is what I always say about Daenerys. I don't think Daenerys is going to turn evil like they did in the show. I think she's going to be framed as such because they're already doing that very thing. They already say Daenerys bathes in virgin's blood, and she, you know, that's how she maintains her beauty, and she's feeding children to her dragons and all this kind of stuff. She's doing nothing of the sort. But people have already decided that for her. So when she comes to Westeros and everyone already hates her for reasons that aren't even real, things that are completely fabricated, it's going to drive her mad because she left, you know, anyways, tra-la-la. We don't have to go down that tangent. But that's kind of my thoughts about Daenerys, is that she's framed as such. And it's like, okay, if you see me as such this evil person, then maybe I'll prove you right, kind of thing. You know, anyways. But I was thinking the same thing about Danielle Lothston, because it's like, oh, you know, I don't think she's actually bathing in virgin's blood, and I don't think she's doing, you know, these crazy things that they say she's doing, but it comes part and parcel because she is like the next female ruler in this place that was said to have a witch queen who clearly ruled over the land for 20 years. So there's kind of some interesting stuff going on there. I don't know. We'll have to see it until we learn more about Mad Donnell, if that was actually true. But I do think it's interesting that right after the Witch Queen of Harrenhal, right after Alys Rivers, you know, she ends up being the next like mad queen that's living there, or like this evil queen. I don't know. Just seems a little funny. So, okay. Let's see. In this show, the green children are all very strange. They don't really fit in. Are you meaning like Bran, or are you meaning like the children of the forest? They are a little bit, yeah, a little bit much, but you know, okay. Bend the knee to the queen or the house burns. Sorry, sounded very Yellow Jackets to me. Exactly. Oh, Natalie. Yes, you should start watching Yellow Jackets, Mink. We're big fellow jackets around here. Okay. Yes, Daemon is going to have Nightmares in Harrenhal. So, there was a leaked audition script for Alys Rivers. And she does imply that she basically, and I read it in my Alys Rivers video. If you guys haven't watched it, then definitely go check it out. But basically she says that the trees have, you know, they're imbued with spirits, and Black Harren cut them down, and now they cause like crazy dreams. And maybe you've experienced something of the sort. Like basically Daemon is sleeping on a weirwood bed, which is really interesting because that idea is toyed with so much in the books, in the A Song of Ice and Fire books, where people are sleeping on weirwood stumps, and they have crazy green dreams and or just crazy dreams in general. So yeah, it should be interesting. I really wonder if they're going to show some kind of dream sequence for Daemon, or that would be really fascinating. I would really like that, actually, because people hate on Daemon so much, and I love Daemon. I've always been a Daemon like purist, like, but I love Daemon. Yeah, he's done some bad things, but who's perfect in this world? Okay, God. But like, I would really love to see a dream sequence, because what if it was like his pure intentions? What if it was like, you know, because in my opinion, I don't think Daemon's he's not purely motivated by wanting to take the crown and be the king. That's not Daemon is fueled by protecting his family and preserving the Targaryens and preserving their connection to their dragons. That's his motivation, in my opinion, where all, you know, that's his main priority. He and Rhaenyra and like Rhaenys now are really the last Targaryens. Yes, there are the High Towers, but obviously that's never going to be a functional relationship for, you know, the two families. But So Daemon is really, he's trying to protect and preserve their connection to their dragons. They are the last of their people and of their, kind, and their dragons are the last dragons in the world. So he recognizes how important it is to preserve all of that. And he spent his lifetime building that knowledge and protecting all of that. And Viserys had Otto Hightower, aka Grima Wormtongue, just filling his head with lies the whole time. Oh, Daemon wants to be the king. He wants to steal the crown from you, yada, yada. But we see Daemon not once, but twice bend down, pick up the crown, and on his knee, place it on the head of the ruler, whether it was Viserys or whether it was Rhaenyra. He did it twice. So that's not his motivations. He's not trying to steal the crown and become the king. And this is why he is a sovereign king, because his motivations aren't power, it's preservation, right? So, anyways, going back to that, I would love to see a Daemon dream sequence. I think that would be really cool, and I think it would get a lot more people like on his side to see where his motivations truly lie, and if it were something more authentic and more real, like with his dragon knowledge and wisdom. Like, I wish people would acknowledge that more, fans of the show. But Aemond is so cute. Okay. Yeah, Harrenhal in the cabin. House of the Dragon and Yellow Jackets have quite a lot in common. I mean, obviously it's like archetypes and stories and that kind of thing. But if you guys haven't seen my little cannibalism as a metaphor for love video, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And you can mention Yellow Jackets as much as you want. Okay, let's see. Sorry, guys, I'm just getting caught up here. Yes, agree. So I think that the fight between Daemon and Aemond was more or less orchestrated by Alys, so she could somehow further her own power. Do you find this plausible? Absolutely, 1,000,000%. Yes. Alys is facilitating all of this now, and I said this before, I don't know if you were here earlier in the stream, but basically it's my opinion that Daemon is the first one who shows up at Harrenhal. He's the first one to take Harrenhal. He takes it peacefully, no bloodshed, versus when Aemond shows up, he's infuriated and he kills everyone within the castle walls with strong blood. So Daemon is actually the more level-headed individual to deal with. And in my opinion, I think he and Alys have their own plan, especially based on that leaked script that they released. Because if it was purely just like this love story between Alys and Aemond, then it seems unlikely that like Alys and Daemon would have had a sort of weird bonding moment beforehand, right? Like, what would be the motivation for a 40-plus-year-old witch woman to seek out a 19-year-old twink boy versus a 59-year-old dragon man? And as a nearly 40-year-old woman, like, I'm asking y'all, I'm just saying, like, plausibly speaking, like, what motivations would Alys have to romantically be more interested in Aemond than she would be with Daemon? Like, it seems to me like Alys and Daemon facilitated a grown-up plan. They're like, we're grown-ups here. We both have power. I'm a green priestess. You're the once and future dragon king. And let's come up with a plan here because things are happening. We're at war. Something's going to happen. I'm probably going to die. What can we do here? And so those two are probably going to come up with some sort of plan. And then when Aemond shows up, she's just using Aemond. And, Aemond goes and he torches the holdings, the castles and holdings all around in the Riverlands that are in the general vicinity of Harrenhal. And then Alys Rivers ends up ruling over Harrenhal for the next 20 years. So you can kind of see like she used Aemond to set her up so that she could be the most powerful person in that region for the next 20 years until they could, oust her from that position, right? So that's my opinion on what's happening, is that she's using Aemond. She and Daemon have a plan, or, they've at least had a grown-up conversation about things, versus Aemond, who is kind of flying by the seat of his pants, and he's very angry. He's fueled by his emotions in this whole situation, especially because before all of this is going to happen, we have blood and cheese. So the blood and cheese situation is really going to make Aemond very angry, because if you are of the opinion, if you are of the Harrenhal opinion, then in my opinion, I think that Aemond is actually the father of Helena's children. Okay. So I don't know if you're that deep down the rabbit hole, but that's where I'm at. But anyway, so when blood and cheese happens, Aemond is going to be even more so like upset, angered, all of the things. So yeah. Okay. So let me know your thoughts. I might be, deep down the rabbit hole. Yes, Lady Bathory, I think, was inspiration for Mad Donnell, and probably for a little bit for Daenerys as well, or sort of that line of thinking, sort of like a vilified woman, maligned woman for, just being a witch or whatever. AKA a woman who thinks for herself. But okay. Yes, it's easy to be framed as evil as a woman. Indeed. Mrs. Duncan the Tall. Reading the whole Night of the Seven Kingdoms twice, it's friendship's basics for me. She's constantly on me, guys. I am so terrible. So the fact that I even was able to reference that story is purely from a wiki of Ice and Fire. Okay. Oh, Lothston etymology breaks down to sorrow, hateful stone. Interesting. Very interesting. Love that. If you guys are ever learning, or like if you're looking to theory build, or, just kind of like if you're toying with that idea, I always start with etymology. I'm always like, what does this name mean? What does this word mean? What does this mean? Because it's the easiest, for me, the easiest way to like find hidden information is through just words and their meaning. Yes. If you can't beat someone like Dany in a battle, you try to disparage them and assassinate their character. Crude but effective. Yes. And we can see that even in our modern landscape, in the current presidential whatever. Anyways, we don't have to get into that today. Okay. Yeah, Dunk and Jamie both have weirwood dreams when sleeping on trees. Ned does beheading on a weirwood stump too. I think you're right there, but he definitely cleans his sword into the pool beneath the weirwood tree. Trees and dream imagery or sleepwalking are very popular theme in shows. Spirits of the tree gods talking to them. Yeah. Yellow Jackets. Okay. Almost caught up here. Do they explain in the books where the dragons came from originally? They do. Well, it's okay. So aliens. No. It's the Valyrian sheep herders were apparently the dragon, like they were basically, it was just like a sheep herding culture in the beginning. There were just like sheep herding people, and somehow the Valyrian sheep herders, something happened where they somehow came upon dragon knowledge. It's kind of debated on how they encountered that. Again, aliens, maybe, I don't know. somehow they gained the knowledge of how to sort of interbreed with dragons and to harness their strength. And they built up their civilization basically on that. And this was like, the time frame is like kind of speculated, but it's like about 10,000 years prior to the story. So there was like a lot of, and this is how my mind kind of comprehends, because the timelines are a little fuzzy and George does that intentionally. But I kind of think that like the rise of Valyria was probably occurring around the same time as maybe a long night event in Westeros, because the two are so magically driven, right? So, and then like A Song of Ice and Fire is sort of like a death of magic in the world. And I think that's also tied to Daenerys's death as well. That's like part of the tragedy of her death. So yeah, it's like the birth of magic versus the death of magic is kind of the whole overarching theme, in my opinion. But yeah, that's it. Originally they come from like a sheep herding culture that basically gained the knowledge of dragons and built up their civilization around them. And there's a lot of blood magic that goes along with it. It's pretty similar to like the fall of Atlantis. There's a lot of like Atlantean parallels to Valyria. So, and I'm going to be getting into that more later this year, because I'm going to be covering a show called The Pendragon Cycle. I think, as long as the Daily Wire does not like blow up, implode themselves. Anyways, so we're going to be getting more into Atlantean mythology later this year. But yeah, Valyria is very similar to Atlantis in that regard. Okay. Well, Nelson Marino says, in my opinion, Otto is a far more misunderstood character. I don't like Otto, but we're all entitled to our own opinions. And I would happily welcome you to try and change my mind, although I don't think it's possible. I really don't like Otto. I like most everybody in the entire like Dance of the Dragon story. And that's one thing, I can't choose Team Black or Team Green. Like if I was pressed and I had to choose, I'd probably choose Team Black. But I like too many of the characters on both sides to decide. But I staunchly do not like Otto Hightower. He's like, I'm definitely not Team Otto. I can tell you that 1,000,000%. Okay. Okay, let's see. Aaron wants a dragon daddy. I just want a dragon. Or maybe I want a dragon daddy. If it's Daemon, all right. He's my once and future king. Okay. 20 years is a long time. She was clearly doing just fine. Exactly. I mean, she outlives everybody else in the Dance of the Dragons. So, and this is my opinion as to why they don't tell us very much about her, is because she's a powerful woman and this happens a lot. And again, like this kind of interwoven with Daenerys as well, where they're, powerful women are they're going to be underscored, right? So like the maesters are the ones keeping history, right? They're the ones writing the history. The history is written by the victors, tra-la-la. The maesters are the ones writing the histories. Do you really think that they're going to like proudly write, they're not going to like highlight Alys Rivers hijacking the largest castle in the realm and then holding it for 20 years. That's crazy. So of course they're going to like vilify her as much as they possibly can and make her look like the witch queen. And this, the word witch is just a very effective way of vilifying women. It always has been, and it always, probably will be. But imagine how many women have died throughout history because they were labeled a witch. The whole, the burning times is a period of time where women were just being burned indiscriminately throughout Europe, throughout the United States. It's crazy. So, yeah. Anyways, Alys would have definitely been burned at the stake if they could get her. And I hope she just shapeshifts into a raven and flies on out of there. Okay, let's see. Sorry, I'm going to catch up here. I swear to God. Okay. Yes, sheep's and dragon lore are related, equal but opposites, fire and ice, as it were. Correct. I like that. I was thinking, you know what? I've been fully thinking about that with pigs and humans lately. Because they are the same, like, anyways, mythologically, right? I've been thinking a lot about how there's a lot of the underworld gods or otherworld gods have pigs associated with them, because and pigs are sacrificed quite often as like a stand-in for humans. And so there's something I've just been thinking about the fact that like the underworld deities like Hades or Aran in Celtic mythology, they have packs of pigs. But when you do sacrifices like the Eleusinian mysteries, you sacrifice a pig. So it's like a stand-in for a human sacrifice, which is you're dedicating your death to Hades or to, you know, the underworld or the other world. If you die before you die, then you won't die when you die. Anyways, that's the shit I've been on. Okay. I love you guys. Thanks for listening to me. Sheep are the ultimate herd animal. Dragons are the ultimate loner individuals. Danny is a shepherd who uses a dragon, so to speak. I love that. That's beautiful. Yes, the silenced woman motif. Yes, write her out of history or just ignore her into oblivion and hope no one asks questions. Yeah, 20 years later. Who's Alys? Okay. Yep, pigs, Cersei and Demeter. Yep, exactly. Cersei turns men into pigs. Well, because she was attacked, you know, she lives alone. She's a dragon. Cersei is a dragon. She lives alone on an island. She's exiled for turning a woman into a monster. So she's exiled to an island and she lives alone, and she becomes like the greatest. She's basically the source of pharmakeia, where she learns the properties of all the herbs. Very Morgan Le Fay also. She learns the properties of all the herbs and their healing powers. She even finds this sacred herb, which we've been unable to like assign it to a certain plant in real life. It's called moly. So the statement holy moly is actually holy moly. Like moly is like a sacred healing plant that Cersei had. Anyways, but yeah, when Odysseus came to her island, she turned all his men into pigs because she had been assaulted by other men who had come to her island. And so she's just said, I ain't fucking around. And all these men turned into pigs now. And then Odysseus had to like seduce her in order to get his men back. So anyways, Demeter, yes, Demeter, you know, Wild Marjoram, we know a lot about Demeter and Persephone in the Fellow Jackets world. So yeah, Hades has the herd of pigs, and in the Eleusinian mysteries, Demeter, that's part of the mystery. You have to bring a pig to be sacrificed at the mystery. They cast all these pigs into a pit. And then a few months later, they have this other, there's two sessions of the Eleusinian mysteries. One is for everyone, and that's where you bring the pig. The other one is female only. And they do sacred activities, such as one person must descend into the pit to clean out all the pigs. And she's like clad and like ritually cleansed before she goes down. Like this is like a sacred task, even though you're going down to like clean up a bunch of rotting pig guts. You're ritually cleansed beforehand. You wear this special garb. You're highly honored as this person, and you kind of gain accolades. And the whole point of the Eleusinian mysteries is to gain acceptance into the afterlife. So when you die, if you've gone through the mysteries, then you are in better standings once you arrive into the underworld. Okay. Anyways. Yes. And Cannibal's calling it the long pig. Yep. All right. I'm getting caught up here. I swear. We're almost there. Okay. I think I made it. Mexican mole. Yes. Circe also had other beasts. She's Medea's cousin or sister. Yes, she's Pasiphae's sister, and she helped her birth the Minotaur. So that's really interesting. Pasiphae has a lot of sacrificial bull symbolism connected to her. Yeah. All right. So I think that about wraps it up. I think we've pretty much covered the Harrenhal things, all the stuff. I am really looking forward to seeing more of Harrenhal in season 2. I just have had it on my mind, and I just have been like, and I'm also like procrastinating on other projects I should be working on. Like I've been meaning to work on a Fallout project, and I just lost all motivation. Anyways, whatever. I lost all motivation mid project, and now I need to like get back at it, and I just have not forced myself to. But I've just had I've had House of the Dragon on my mind, and I'm sorry, I can't like just make that stop, obviously. So I just wanted to get on here and chat with you guys, and I'm just looking forward to getting to Hot D season and being able to chat with you guys. And I'm going to be covering the episodes. Hopefully it should be a little chaotic. I'm going to have my kids home, and I didn't really think about that before committing to covering it for the Monday morning murder podcast, but that's all right. We'll work it out. We will work it out. Yeah. We might go a little early, but I hope you guys don't mind. But yeah, other than that, I think we're about done here. We can start wrapping it up. If you guys have, yes, I've got hot D's on the brain. Hot D. And I'm trying to get Mandy to cover season 2 with me. She's a little bit on the fence right now. She's just going through some personal stuff. So hopefully we'll have her on. But if not, then hey, you guys can see that I can ramble on my own just fine. So I'm very excited for it to come out. But other than that, I'm going to be working on a Fallout video. Fallout is a new series that's coming on Amazon. It starts on April 12th. So I was going to just do a couple videos for it, just because it has Ella Purnell in it, who played Jackie in Yellow Jackets. And so of course we love her. And I see a lot of like interesting like parallels to like her death in Yellow Jackets versus sort of the Fallout universe. And interestingly, it takes place in 2296, the year 2296, and Jackie, she died in 1996. So I'm like, it's like 300 years exactly afterwards. Like, this is so poetic. Anyways, so I'm probably going to cover that. I just need to get my act together and get the video together. I have all the stuff. I'm just really procrastinating big time. And then, so I'm going to work on that. I've been working on some stuff for the Pendragon cycle. I'm going to do some book reviews for that. I'm not sure exactly when the series is coming out. It's coming out sometime in 2024. I'm really hoping that it's going to be later in the year, just because House of the Dragon is coming out and it's going to be time consuming. And I don't think it's a smart idea to overlap. Personally, that's just my marketing, perspective. I don't think it's smart to overlap Pendragon cycle and House of the Dragon. Yeah. So that is coming up. More Pendragon cycle stuff is coming up. House of the Dragon stuff is coming up. And then my Yellow Jackets stuff will probably be later in the year unless some hype comes up. If they're going to start filming May 14th. So who knows what could happen? We also are expected to get a Cabin Daddy special at some point. There is a special that's coming between season 2 and season 3. Don't know exactly when it's going to happen. I'm guessing later in the year, like probably closer to winter this year. Just because season 3 is not coming until 2025. So we've got time. But, whenever the Yellow Jackets hype picks back up, then I'll definitely be on that gravy train. You know it. So that's kind of what I've got going on for the rest of this year. I pretty much have my year planned out. It's going to be Hot D's, Fallout, Pendragon Cycle, and then, Yellow Jackets once the hype picks back up. But yeah, as soon as that Cabin Daddy episode drops, it's going to be a party, but we just don't know when that's going to happen. So, all right. So Jackie Reborn. Exactly. It's Jackie Reborn. It's her emerging from the underworld. That's my take on Fallout, right? Like, she's been in the cave. She's emerging from the cave. And actually, I have a lot, and I can tell you guys this actually, because whatever. So what I've noticed, and if you guys are following like the Fallout stuff, I don't know, the news or just the storyline in general, I don't know if you have it all, but I have noticed what's called a chaos conf. So a chaos conf is basically like a reordering of the world. Okay. So it's like when the chaos was happening, okay, like before times, right? Chaos is what exists before order and society and all of that kind of stuff, right? So that's kind of what the Fallout world is, because it's a post-apocalyptic world. So it's chaos. Now, what I'm noticing within all of that is the roles of Ella Purnell's character, Lucy, and then there's another character, Maximus, and then there's the ghoul. And the ghoul is very he doesn't have a nose. He's all red and leathery, and he's very serpentine. And so in Chaos Conf, there's very often a dragon that has to be you have to conquer the dragon in order to establish order, right? That's a very common theme in storytelling. And so that's what's going on with Lucy, with Maximus, and then with the ghoul. Like the ghoul is the serpent. He's the chaos factor, right? They're in this world of disorder, and there's no, it's just chaos, right? There's no rules, there's no regulation, there's no, society is in shambles. Lucy comes out of the cave. She's this princess type. She's clean, she's fresh, she's new to the world. She has no idea what the upper level, the chaos sphere is even about. She emerges into it. She encounters the serpent. There's this sort of the serpent wants the princess. That's how it always is. The serpent wants the princess. The dragon wants the princess. And then the white knight has to come and save her. He's the hero. And so that's Maximus in the story. So anyways, tra-la-la, that's my thoughts on what's happening in Fallout. They're creating a Chaos Conf story out of it, along with the rest of it being there's so much lore that's going on in the Fallout universe, but they have to create some sort of storyline to create it. It can't just be, oh, let's just rock around and kill zombies or whatever it is. That's not really what it is. So anyways, that's my opinion. We'll see if that's the case, but I'm going to talk about that in my my first video for the Lucy Lightbringer. And also Lucy is the name of the first woman. So the oldest mummy that's been discovered on Earth is called Lucy. She's the first woman. And so there's that movie Lucy that has Scarlett Johansson, and she's the first woman who becomes basically computerized or whatever. I can't even remember exactly but she is Lucy. And they show all those scenes of her with the monkey. She's interacting with that with the monkey character. So it's kind of a evolution type, whatever. I like this kind of stuff, guys. I don't know if you knew that. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Lucy was fantastic. I really liked it. It was a good movie. It's like, just do a bunch of drugs and you'll become the most intelligent person in the world. No. But it'll physically evolve you into a computer. Okay. All right, you guys. Well, I think that's about it for now. I will probably be back. We should probably do, I just kind of want to do some streams, kind of getting into the swing of things, into the motion for House of the Dragon for when it comes out, June 16th. So we'll be ready. We'll be in the swing of things. So I'll probably do a couple more. I don't really know specifically what I have in mind, but it'll be something. I also have a video in mind for the Egyptian stuff. I'm trying to like structure it so I can create it into something digestible for a video for you guys. But I think I've kind of got something coming together in my mind. So we'll see how it works. But thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me this morning. And we will see you all really soon in the next one. All right. Bye.